Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity for being in this absolutely fantastic environment. So, I come from the University of Birmingham, and I'm going to give you an idea of what it is we have been doing in Birmingham. So, first off, where is it as a place? So, it's in the centre of the UK. They've moved my slides around, so they've removed the map. So I'll have to give you sort of a pictorial description. It's the second city. It's also the city that is within the UK that is the furthest from the sea. So that's its sort of two key features. It's also what is known as a red brick university. So it's not as old as here, but it's sort of 120 years old. And it was a university that was developed as an institution to take in everyone without any religious affiliation. The things that I'm going to be talking about today, I'm not going to be giving you specific examples of materials that we have developed within the university. I will leave that to John, who is sitting in the front row there. But this is very much how you can start from essentially a supervisor and a summer intern and build up a team in order that we have materials that are working across the whole university in a way that is quality assured without requiring all of the academics to become experts in Maple TA. And I want to take you through the reasons why we get objections as to why you might want to innovate. In some sense, many of these criteria are, you could substitute any education innovation in these particular aspects. Okay, so put yourselves in the shoes of a cautious academic who has suggested to them that they could do something new. And that new, in this case, is going to be using Maple TA type questions in addition to supplement either the assessment or the learning associated with their course. So the first standard objection that you will get, as you have coffee with them and say that their course might be suitable, is time. I don't have the time. And they'll latch onto it for a number of reasons. They'll suggest that they don't have time because it will take time to learn Maple TA. It's too difficult, it's too technically complicated. It'll take me time to write the questions. The fact that they already will need questions whichever way they happen to be delivering the assessment is beside the point. The one that perhaps they don't ask, which they should do, is that it takes time to actually test the questions to check that not only does it give you the correct answer when you input the answer as you think that the student will give it, but also for the myriad of ways that the students may actually input the answers, many of which may be correct. They may have been taught those materials from a different perspective. So that's the first sort of barrier they will put up. The next one will be associated with content. And that tends to be sort of a transition stage. Okay, so they said, all right, so you said you're going to help me. Well, here's my content. This is what I deliver on paper in PDF. What I need is exactly the same as what I had on paper, but just transformed into an electronic environment. And they will fail to see that both the things that the computer is good at marking and the things that they are good at marking don't always overlap. And what's more, that there is opportunity here to ask types of questions that they previously couldn't have done. Perhaps as they start thinking that, yep, you're really serious about this, they're going to have to do it. And I should say that in this, I'm now Director of Education for what is the College of Engineering and Physical Sciences at the university. So there is an element of asking them nicely and then suggesting more strongly that they do things. So once we've got to the suggesting more strongly, they may be saying, but how do I support the students? Can I rely on it from a test perspective? What if it all goes horribly wrong? And what about all the feedback that our wonderful human markers, and here it is, the angelic human marker who seems to have an infinite amount of time and a beautiful handwriting, and what they feed back to the students. Perhaps what they don't ask, which they should, so these are the questions that I would hope that they would ask, which is, if I'm going to work in this new environment, how do I know which questions will be the most useful to my students? And how do I capture the different ways of understanding a concept? So this is the flip of being able to test a question, to be able to capture all the different ways of getting the right answer, but being able to work through with students such that they can really develop a strong understanding of the concept. And then the one that really does associate with time is that it's no good for students to just give them I wrote 1 or 2 questions, because then the barrier for them in actually learning how to use the system is too great compared to the benefits that they will have in terms of practicing. So there has to be a decent size question bank. And there are some other issues which I'm going to describe to you from a UK context, but they tend to crop up in other ways globally. And the first one of those, which is something that dominates discussions within the university all the way up to our governing body. So I'm a member of the University Council, and the National Student Survey is one of the topics that was the sort of heat of discussion at that meeting. So really, how the students feel about what you are teaching is absolutely critical. So what does the National Student Survey do? As with many of these things, its purpose is to ensure, from the student's perspective, that we are delivering to them an education that will be at least consistently good across the UK. So its purpose is very worthy. And you can see from an assessment and feedback, I've just put up there a number of the questions that are associated in there. The criteria has been clear, it's been fair, the feedback has been timely, and I've received helpful comments. All of those things you can do within a computer algebra environment, and we use Maple TA. And in a sense, I can speak about this from a position of strength, because if you were able to read that table, which seems to have shrunk down, you will see that Birmingham as a university within physics, which is my discipline, comes second within the UK. Alongside that, so because the government felt that it needed even more control over the standards within the university sector, we've recently been through something called the Teaching Excellence Framework. So this requires us as a university to check how we're doing on all criteria, to write a narrative around that, and then we are judged as an institution. And we came up gold on that, which was the highest level. So all of these things are good. But actually, that causes an even larger problem from an innovation perspective. And the problem is that if you are doing well, in this case very well, from all measures, it's much harder to risk, in inverted commas, to innovate. Because the question that you will always get, quite reasonably, given those parameters and how important they are from both a student satisfaction perspective and also a recruitment perspective, so we have competitive recruitment into universities, for any innovation that you wish to undertake, Maple TA and everything else, there is immediately a question, but what if the students don't like it? And it you can replace pretty much with anything else. So that could have left us in a position where we say, okay, well, we would just do our best to maintain and move forward gradually the status quo. We can't risk to actually change anything. Instead, what we've actually done is we've asked, okay, this is the parameter, this is the national landscape we are in, we can't ignore it, or if we do ignore it, actually the number of people that will be willing to actually to join in with us to participate will be incredibly limited, and we will end up with a few sort of special projects which don't actually get much use for the students. So the way that we have worked with that is to say, what do we need to do to be able to safely innovate, okay? We can't mitigate risk entirely, but actually you can't mitigate risk entirely by standing still either. So the first thing that we have worked to do is to understand the pedagogy of any lecture course that we are working with. So we will have, if we have a piece of material, so we have undertaken courses within mathematics, but actually, as you'll see, the work that we have been doing is much broader than that. And we will then, so we'll go through, we'll look at the materials, we'll look at the sort of threshold concepts that the students are having difficulties with, and we will then work in strong collaboration with the academic who is delivering that particular module or area to explore what the possibilities are and the ways that we might be able to extend and support the work that they're doing. So we'll do some little bits, see that they're happy, and we will then scale up. Because as I said previously, if you don't have a big enough question bank, then you won't get buy-in from the students because of the sort of, it's special, I only got one question. And then the final thing, as we scale up, and I think this is something that has been absolutely critical to us in getting things out across campus, and particularly in having it delivered by people who are not experts in Maple TA, is to quality assure the materials that we are generating. And the other final part, which we've been actually managing to scale up with university support over the last year, is to provide accessible and immediate aftercare for staff. So if they're running their first sessions, their first diagnostic tests, we make sure that there is someone available that can, if necessary, and in most cases there have been no glitches, but they know, they feel secure that there will be someone there who will take responsibility and find a resolution to the problem. So that's how things are working. It's a nice package, it fits together. At this point, you may well be saying, but that sounds really expensive. You must have loads of people doing this. Well, I'm just kind of, so do we have loads of people doing it? Actually, till very recently, it was myself and John, who started out as a summer intern with me. We worked out, it wasn't quite 10 years ago, but we're heading on that way, and who progressed through to then doing a PhD and doing some work with in computer algebra on the side. So that was because I'd started teaching the Year 1 maths course and had hit the usual, well, I need the students to practice some more. And we then had some more summer interns coming in. We had a group of sort of 3 or 4 that were working together, and that team has now become much bigger. So the last 3 summers, the interns team size has been of the order of 12. So that has been our total setup. We now actually have managed to secure an additional 2 posts who are working in order, particularly that we can have immediate support across campus. And the QA sign-off, for that, we really require that we have a big team. So how do we do this? If you write a question, as with any other piece of code, if you've written it and it works, i.e. it does the equivalent of compile, it's very hard for you to find any, they're not necessarily bugs, but alternative ways that you might choose to deploy the question or think about it, which will give you an answer which is then not consistent. So that means that you need to really have enough people, i.e. enough separate people thinking about the problems, such that a group can actually go ahead and write the materials, and then we do something called destructive testing, such that we put the students into teams, and it's a point of honor to be able to break by thinking of the most ludicrous way of writing in the correct answer into a question. And by going through quite an extensive loop of this type, so if they manage to break it, it goes back to the team, and then it will go out to a third team to recheck. So by the time it has been through that process, and the interns that we have working with us are typically students who are in the top of our cohort, so they will have excelled in both the mathematics and the computing modules on their courses. And the aftercare is then John plus team plus the interns if we find that we need some additional material. So it's a relatively small number of people. In terms of interns, we're talking about sort of £30,000 per year in work that is happening. In the position that I'm in now, at least I can, in effect, I have some sort of strategic guidance in being able to say that this is a project we should be doing for the college. So this is all of the engineering and physical sciences. So who are the interns? So I thought, given they couldn't be here today, I would put up the sort of teams that we've had over the last 3 summers. They have written blogs as they've been going through the project. They are not varnished. You will see that there are points that they have really struggled with the material. They've struggled in pulling things together. But as a student journey, it's very useful because it's been helpful to subsequent years to see that they feel stuck, it's not clear how it's going to go together, and they can then read ahead and see what it is that has actually been successful as a result. The other thing is that we work incredibly closely with Maple TA. So with Michael, we've been sort of setting up, right from the moment that we signed our contract, we were looking at how do we look at integrating Maple TA into what is our BLE, which is Canvas. I knew that it would not be a starter as far as my institution was concerned if I told them that I was going to need a separate login. That's just the way things are within the institution. And so actually the solution to that was that I persuaded Michael, who at the time really wasn't clear that, what is it I'm going to do with John? How am I going to keep him occupied for 3 months? Well, he's still working with them now. And we had, John was then able to write an LTI which connected Canvas and Maple TA in order that we would be able to use it. So we have the Joint Development Officer. That's been incredibly helpful, I hope, from both sides, definitely from our side, in being able to ensure that things that we think are possible development areas we can see how they might fit into the roadmap for MapleSoft. I thought I'd give you an idea of the sort of range of how this has taken off is sort of in a time scale, and the sort of the added benefits that perhaps aren't recognized at an institutional level. So the color coding on here, you can see at the bottom. So I've given you, so you can see we start off pretty small in 2010. There's one blue and there's one sort of grey-green. That's John and me. You can see that it carries on like that for another year. Then we managed to get 4 interns. Of those 4, all 4 of them went on to do PhDs. Okay, so that's a significant benefit that perhaps would not have been recognised from an institutional level. We then went on to, we signed in 2014, so you can see the step change. In 2014, we went from using a Birmingham-developed computer algebra system to signing up with MapleSoft in order that we could actually extend across campus and be sure of both the online support and the sort of the loading not being a problem as we extended. And you can see at that point things take off. And the majority of students have elected to carry on and do PhDs. So we're taking them in their penultimate year or halfway through their degree, and the opportunity to actually work in real research, albeit in an education setting rather than perhaps in a laboratory, has made them really think about what it is that they'd like to do career-wise. What's more as an added benefit for Birmingham is that we have kept students within our group because they want to carry on working with the Maple TA education work as well as doing a PhD in theoretical physics. They have elected to stay in Birmingham rather than move elsewhere. But it's not just, if you're going to have 12 students working on coding for 8 weeks, and they're working incredibly hard, so bearing in mind that these are the top of the cohort, they're not used to being in as big a group as that, of all of them competing at the same level, so it can get pretty intense. So we've done quite a lot of teamwork activities with them. So we break the ice immediately by them learning how to juggle at the same time. It's very hard to maintain your seriousness or perhaps not knowing people outside of your year group if at the same time you're failing to learn to juggle. There's also quite a lot of cake baking, and we have the requisite coffee machine. It's not quite as good as Italian coffee, but we're doing our best. And as a group, they work very much as a spin-out company. So there's a sort of a feeling, it's not quite the Mobius strip, but a feeling of coming full circle here, in so much as they've got the management structures that they put in, so some of the students find that they naturally fit into that area. There's the quality assurance, and there's the working in partnership, effectively as consultants with the academics. So that's an example of a Trello board that they've constructed in order to keep track of everything that they are doing across campus. And that's an example from outside of sort of my direct area within biosciences, where they felt the need, but definitely had none of the coding skills to be able to undertake that area. And this, just as an example, this is an intern from right at the start who is now undertaking a PhD at Cornell about the influence that this had on him in terms of career. I thought I'd give you a sense of what it is. I'm not going to go through all of the individual courses that we have here. You'll have a chance to hear about some of those later on today. But this gives you an idea of the types of breadth that we're doing. You'll notice that many of these courses, as per other speakers, start with Maths 4, where the subject is changing and therefore the audience is changing and the level will be changing as well. Robust questions became critical, but you'll now start seeing that we are really extending where it is that we can use these Maple TA questions into areas that have perhaps previously been unexplored. So they're happening in material science. I teach the third-year quantum mechanics course, so we've got things like operators and the Dirac notation working within that setting. We're also looking at being able to run things such that we're starting an overseas campus, how it is that we can use these materials when we definitely can't send the team over if there's an issue in the wrong time zone. And finally, we make sure that the students really do take the quality assurance seriously. So the picture you can see at the bottom is the intern team, bearing in mind they're all mathematically orientated. Most of them have not particularly enjoyed or even undertaken laboratory experience, going out to try out how the teaching materials they've generated to prepare you for laboratory actually work in reality by going to try and use them in the lab. So that was during the summer. Another objection that we get from staff is one that, student interns are good. I've had one once, but they never quite finish the project. And, you really have to guide them because they won't get the purpose of why it is that we're doing it. And to counteract that, I thought it might be nice just to end by showing you a video that the students put together for me at 24 hours notice because I needed it for one of the senior members of the university, of what their perception was of why they were doing this as a project.
Digital learning is at the heart of what we've been developing in this project. The intense collaboration between students from different backgrounds, as well as academics and STEM developers, means that we've been able to create an extensive collection of digital resources. Moreover, this has enabled us to effectively connect knowledge. Why do people want to get involved?
Learning to code in different programming languages.
I wanted to help shaping the student learning experience across the college.
Getting involved in the college community.
As a result of this project, I'm going to be starting a PhD here in September. These are some of the examples of the digital tools that we've created. These have been previously done on paper, but now we've enhanced them to really bring the concepts to life. By bringing in developers with a background in STEM, we've been able to really see the potential for improving these learning experiences.
For more information on us, check out our Twitter account, GitHub, and WordPress blog.
Okay, and I've finished with a picture of what I madly agreed that we would do at the end of our session this September, very kindly sponsored by Michael, although he was unable to come along. I did kind of wonder as I got there what on earth I was doing going go-kart racing with all of my team. I didn't come last. And with that, I'd like to stop and ask for any questions. Thank you.